So my name is Bob Cabral. I'm the winemaker and general manager here at Williams Selyem Winery. You're at the state property on Westside Road. Today we're filming at the estate vineyard, the Williams Selyem Estate Vineyard, of which we have about 25 acres of it planted. We have a brand new winery here where we can blend and bottle. We have some administrative offices, a hospitality area. The vineyards right behind us here are actually part of the blocks that our 2007 Lytton Estate wine received 100 points from Steve Heimoff at the Wine Enthusiast a little over a year ago now. The winery was started by Bert Williams and Ed Selyem. They were making wine in a garage back in the late 70s, and by 1981 they decided to get a bond and started to make wine commercially. They made a few hundred cases that first year, and it kind of took off after that. The defining moment actually for Bert and Ed, I believe, was with the 85 vintage. They were growing Pinot Noir, getting Pinot Noir from Joe Rocchioli, and their 85 Rocchioli Vineyard Pinot Noir won the sweepstakes at the California State Fair. So they were named Winery of the Year, and that kind of exploded into that cult status, or people wanting to get onto their list and purchase more of their wines. The list originally started, Bert Williams' role here at the winery was pretty much to make the wines and care for them. Ed's role was to help with the growers, get the fruit into the winery so that Bert could crush and ferment. Ed's other role, dual role I should say, was to try and sell the wine as well. And back in the early 80s, they had a hard time getting anybody to represent them, especially out of state. So they decided to create a list of people, friends and family primarily to begin with, that they would sell the wine to. This list grew after the 85 Rocchioli Vineyard won the sweepstakes award at the California State Fair, and it just kind of grew from there. The defining moment again was with that vintage of the release of the 85s. The list kind of exploded after that once they were recognized throughout the state of California, and even on a national level, having won the best wine at the California State Fair. They had a list then at that point. They couldn't supply enough wine to their customers. Now, I started joining the list. I joined the list when I was in graduate school, and one of the first vintages I believe I received was the 1983 vintage. And back then, I was customer number 576 on the list, and I used to get offered up to a case and a half of Allen. And after that 85 vintage release, it started to dwindle kind of rapidly. After that, we were lucky to get a case, and then it went down to 8 bottles, then down to 6 bottles. And as the list grew and demand grew, they tried to supply that with additional vineyards, with additional grapes, and just weren't able to ever meet the demand. Well, I think that anytime you've got a third-party critic that is scoring the wines and telling their consumers and the general public that these are good, solid wines, that you're not going to have too difficult a time selling the wines. I think they've played a big part in our success going up to the sale. When John and Kathy Dyson bought the winery in '98, they were very sought after. They were getting a lot of mid-90 scores. And then after the sale, I think being able to continue that inertia, gaining scores from people like Robert Parker and Steve Tanzer and Steve Heimoff at the Wine Enthusiast, along with Wine Spectator, they definitely have an influence over the consumer's buying patterns. Well, I see the Sonoma wine industry kind of being about maybe 10 to 15 years behind Napa. It seems like we're the second child or the stepsister or um, the other shoe on the foot, in that we just haven't gained the notoriety that Napa has. And I think one of the reasons is the varietal of Cabernet being king. You know, it's just Chardonnay is kind of the queen of the whites and Cabernet is king of the reds. Cabernet does grow fairly well here in Sonoma County. I think in some of the cooler areas, they're actually more complex Cabernets than we see from some of the warmer areas of Napa. But I don't think it was until Pinot Noir kind of took off in the early 2000s that, Sonoma County started to gain a little bit of momentum with Napa at that point. You know, after doing this for quite some time, if I had to put some numbers to it, I would say 75% of it, 75 to 80% of it, I think is really done out in the vineyard. And that's where I've really focused my efforts, especially since I've been here at Williams Selyem, is growing that perfect fruit, trying to deliver the perfect raw product. Once you get it into the winery, I think it's not rocket science. I still think it's a difficult job, but you need to just be meticulous about what you do. You have to be thorough. I think you have to want to do all the necessary hard work around the clock that it takes to process the fruit correctly and to take care of the fruit once it's in barrel. I think sometimes people get tired, crews get a little bit lazy, and then mistakes start getting made, and it's all those little pieces of the puzzle that don't get laid to complete the picture once it gets into the cellar. So I think a very meticulous winemaker makes up about 25% of what that wine is. But I really truly believe that it's grown in the vineyard, no matter what the varietal is. Here at Williams Selyem, we've with the list, we've had some kind of funny anecdotes stories that we've had occur since I've been here. We had one guy that was so worried about getting kicked off the list. This was early on when I started, I would say around 99 or 2000. He was so worried about being kicked off the list because he couldn't purchase any wine, or didn't purchase any wine, because I believe it was his mother-in-law had passed. So he sent us a photocopy of her death certificate with this long letter of explanation, and it kind of creeped out the girls in the sales department a little bit. We've had people that have fought over their allocation, their placement on the list during divorces. So we've actually been contacted by lawyers to inform us through letters that this party or that party has been awarded the placement on the list. I think some of the funniest things that I used to enjoy doing coming back in from the weekends is we would listen to the customer line, and people would leave messages, and you would listen to the messages, and the phone would say, 12:45 a.m. and then all you would hear is a bunch of people yelling and screaming, and somebody would say, "This is the best wine I've ever had in my entire life. You guys are great," and click. And this would go on. Sometimes we'd have 2 and 3 of these phone calls at different times through the night. So we used to save some of those recordings and listen to them periodically because they were just hilarious when people would call in. So as far as the future of cult wines, I think that you'll still see a few of these brands pop up. As winemakers, I think start their own brands. They have that opportunity to become cult wines. A cult wine to me is somewhat the personality behind the wine as well. So I think right now the consumer is going to determine, where the next level goes. And it just feels really good to be a part of something that that was kind of near and dear to my heart, being on the list for such a long time while I was studying at Fresno State and working on my undergraduate and graduate degrees, to see all of this kind of come to fruition. It's been very gratifying, and I feel very positive about the future, especially after seeing the sales the last couple weeks. I think that we have a lot to offer our customers, and in return I think our customers will be very loyal to us, and they should come out and visit and really enjoy this property, because that's what this property is really all about, is to have our customers have a place to come and enjoy parts of the Russian River Valley and enjoy the wines out here with us.